Hey everyone. All right. So today I want to talk about paddles. I'm going to be moving back and forth, so I threw a mic on, so hopefully this sounds clear. So I've got two paddles here, and first thing I want to talk about is construction. Both of these are carbon fiber, so they're a lighter paddle. They're built a little bit different. They're still light paddles, but they still feel very different from a weight point of view, and it's down to construction. Other types of paddles that you might see, and especially paddles that you see in some inflatable boards, are going to be aluminum based with a poly or a plastic blade and handle. They work as well. The shaping on them doesn't always allow for the same level of performance that you'll get on a lot of the carbon paddles, and they're generally quite heavy. Main difference in construction is going to be aluminum or some sort of metal, going to be a little bit heavier, maybe more durable, and then carbon fiber. And that's not to say that carbon fiber isn't durable. I use this paddle, and I have for probably about 5 years, and I'm not exactly easy on my equipment, and it's still holding up just fine. Aluminum is just, you can bang it off of rocks and bash it around, a great cottage kind of paddle, and it just takes the beating. Okay, so the next thing to consider is type. So there's adjustable paddles and then there's fixed paddles. So this paddle here is fixed, and if you look at it, how you know it's fixed is we have the handle, you have a continuous shaft, and then you have the blade at the end. Difference between a fixed and adjustable is we have handle, we have an adjustment point which controls the length of the paddle, and then the rest of the shaft and the blade. A fixed paddle is a paddle that comes very, very long. You cut the handle to the length you want, and then glue so you cut the shaft to the length you want, and then glue the handle on. So the advantages of that are this tube is totally sealed because it's glued at both ends. This paddle's never going to sink unless the shaft is broken. Another advantage is it creates the continual length allows for better performance of the paddle, so it gets a certain amount of flex that the paddles are designed to have, and it takes some weight away from it because without that adjustment, that actually does contribute weight. So a fixed paddle, I quite often call it my second paddle or the second paddle because you're cutting it, it's probably going to be just used by you or someone who is very close in height and arm length to you. If it's a SUP board that's used by the entire family, this isn't a great way to go because if you have people of different heights, you can't adjust the paddle between folks. So I call it my second paddle. So once we get used to a paddle at a specific length, quite often it's nice to go to this style, the fixed paddle, cut down on a little bit of weight and increase performance in the paddle by cutting it. Okay. More often than not, what you're going to see is an adjustable paddle. And this is a two-piece adjustable paddle. So it has the blade, the shaft, and it has this piece here. And that's why it's two-piece. This piece comes out entirely. This is a good idea. Keep in mind that when that piece comes out, this is the best way to drain the paddle and dry it. Even though the top piece is in, and it's quite often secured, you still might be getting a little bit of water in there. So maintenance for this type of paddle is take it apart and dry it. The other thing is sandy beaches. Sand can get into the shaft here and inside and can start seizing it up. So it's a good idea to take it apart every once in a while and give it a clean. So this is a two-part paddle because literally there are two pieces. You will find three-piece paddles as well. And again, this is going to be something that is associated with inflatables. You would have another point here, generally, where it's an attachment like this, and the pieces would come apart. So you end up with three pieces so that it fits in the adjustable paddle bag. So not a requirement by any means to paddle an inflatable. It's more for ease of transportation. If you're going on airplanes, if you're going in the back of a small car, or maybe just storage limitations at your house, sometimes the three-piece paddle is just easier. And again, they come in aluminum and they can come in carbon fiber. When you buy carbon fiber, you are going to have a more expensive paddle. So those are the main types of paddles. So we have construction as aluminum and carbon fiber. We have fixed paddles and we have adjustable paddles. So sizing the paddle is the next critical piece. And sizing the paddle is a relationship between our height and the length of our arm. I'll put a reference in the comments below. It's a quick blade size guide, and it breaks down appropriate length based on your height. So it's going to be a rough estimate for SUP surf, SUP touring, and general more SUP use. The reason there's differences is for SUP surf, we're hunched over more, so the paddle needs to be shorter. For touring, we want bigger lengths, or we want more reach on the board, so it's going to be a little bit longer. General purpose is going to be somewhere in between the two. So for most intents, or for most of us, the general purpose is going to be sufficient. So when I'm teaching a lesson, how I tell people to, especially brand new folks to paddling, I always say, take the blade, set it by your foot. And this isn't by your foot, this is by your foot. And then I have to move back up here quite a bit. You're going to take your hand and put it up over your head. And I don't want to reach where we're craning over like this, but also this here is not up over your head. So you want to have maybe a slight bend to your elbow, but with the arm extended. And then what I would do for a brand new paddler is I put the handle roughly in the center of the palm towards the bottom of the palm. So a brand new paddler, I would probably have the paddle in the hand somewhere about there. The distinction is a brand new paddler who is new on the board is probably going to be a little more rigid, standing up a little bit taller, and needs a little more height on the paddle to be able to get the blade in the water. As we become more experienced and as we become more comfortable, the paddle length shortens. So for me, I ride with my handle probably just under the palm. So for me, I would adjust this to here. So it's a difference of maybe 2 inches, but that 2 inches is going to make a huge difference in your paddling. Now, the adjustment here is, the adjusting piece, we clamp it down and it's a friction fit. So with this paddle, the whole handle spins. So we do have to do an extra piece of, see if I can do this here, looking at the blade and lining the handle up with the blade itself. Because if I have the blade here and I have the handle, so it's facing kind of cockeyed to it, it's not going to work. So I usually say eyeball the handle to the blade so that they're in line, and then clamp it in. You will find some paddles with a ridge that runs up it, so this handle doesn't turn. And so you don't have to worry about that piece. All depends on the paddle. Different manufacturers make them different ways. And lastly, handle position. So this handle here, you can kind of see it has a shape. It has a rounded piece. I have 2 Kahuna boards, so all my equipment says Kahuna all over the place. This is rounded here, and then it's kind of hard to see, but it's inset. There we go. It's inset on one side here. So inset here, rounded out here. The rounded piece goes in your palm. Fingers curl over the top. So that's the proper way. If I have this backwards, palm fits in here, fingers curl over the top. You can see what that's done to hold my whole arm position to the paddle shaft. It's changed it, and I'm not going to get any efficiency. So here, holding it properly, you can see how my arm comes up and away from the blade. So holding a paddle. We haven't talked about this yet at all. Many of you, if you've been out paddling, you'll know that there is an angle on that paddle blade. So it angles out. That angle needs to face away from us. So we have to make sure the fingers curl over the top, and they curl over the top on the side of the blade where it's facing away from us. The reason it faces away from us, there's a whole thing behind that. By the time we hit our power phase where we can get power into the blade, that angle becomes key because it means that the blade is actually pushing full onto the water where we can apply the most pressure within our stroke. Okay, so sizing. Middle of the palm to start, towards the bottom of the palm as you become more experienced. You'll know it's time to lower your shaft is when you're paddling. If you are burying the shaft up to here, or if you are burying the blade up to here, the paddle probably needs to be a little bit shorter because we only want to just bury the blade in the water. If you are getting the blade in this far and this much is still sticking out, the paddle might need to be a little bit longer. Rule of thumb is that the blade needs to be buried for efficiency, but just buried. So here, I'd be looking at about there in the water. Goes in completely, easier to take out without causing problems. All right, so fixed, adjustable. Adjustables come in 2 pieces, 3 pieces. Carbon fiber, aluminum. Carbon fiber is more expensive but lighter, saves your shoulders. Fixed is after you've been paddling for a while and you want to have your own special paddle. Gives you better performance, generally lighter paddle again. And didn't really talk about it, but blade size. Generally, blade sizes come in cubic centimeter references. If you see 110, stay away from it. It's too big. It can move a lot of water. It can move us faster. It's really hard on the shoulders, especially for recreational paddling. We're going to end up probably with an injury. 95, 85 is a more common one that you'll see out there now. You get a nice balance of power to not too much torque on the shoulder and just easier on your body. Okay, so I'll talk more about the actual stroke later. Have a couple of videos where I'm on the board demonstrating a bit of it, and they'll be coming soon. So that's paddles. So that was for you, Jonathan. Hopefully that was informative. If not, let me know, and I will throw another video out. Stay tuned. I'm going to film another video here live almost immediately on shorty wetsuits. Okay, see y'all.